artists should have the resources they need to do the work that runs through their veins. And with the gathering of resources, we will one day abolish the phrase, starving artist. Day and night, the movement does not cease, for creativity never sleeps. We are Artist Uprising.
Welcome to the Artist Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Cabus, with a very special guest. We go a long way back. I'm so happy to have you here. This is my good friend, journalist, and author, Paul Salfen. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Can't complain, man. Well, Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm super grateful for this opportunity to actually talk to you, be on the other side, and just catch up, man.
Yeah.
First off, I'd love to know where you developed the love for what you do.
It's a lifelong love of I guess what I'm doing now, which incorporates all the things that I do love, which is music, movies, and travel.
Right.
So it started out when I was in high school. I don't know if you had one of those like broadcasting classes like we did. It was like those little TVs that are bolted up in the in the corner like prison, and everybody had to watch it like prison, and it was so bad. Like I really hope the footage doesn't exist out there, but it's all the students doing like sports, weather, news, and just fumbling through it. And so I always thought I'd be behind camera because I don't know. Look at me, I look like a thumb, and so well, I certainly did then. In high school, oh man, at the rock T-shirts, probably like close to a mullet and like ripped jeans. Like you did not want to put me on camera. But maybe the teacher thought it was funny, so he did. He put me on weather. And everybody thought I was, I don't know, maybe high or something, and I wasn't. I was just sleepy, And so here I am going, today, and, they're holding up the, it's like 70 and cloudy. I'm like, it's 70, and I'm like squinting, and they're just like, what is wrong with this guy? And so the teacher, looked at me and thought, oh, this guy's never going to be on TV. Well, hey, he's like this little tiny gruff guy, and he goes, you like music, go talk to some bands. And so me and my friend Joe, we took the big clunky camera and we went town in Philadelphia to every big club and stadium and tour bus door and side door and just knocked and like, hey, our show sucks. Will you be on it? And every last band said yes.
2 high school kids knocking on the door, and they were just letting you in, because this wouldn't fly nowadays. But
oh no, it was just because it was the dark ages, and they were just like, are you supposed to be here? Okay,
You got to tell me though, like, I mean, you're getting all this great content, you're interviewing all these artists. What does your professor say when you take it back to him?
Oh yeah, so we went back and I said, I was all excited to show them the footage, and he literally smacks his head and he goes, I met bands in the school, and I was like, oh,
no.
I was just so dejected,
No.
Like, I go, and he's like, but yeah, good job. I don't know how you pulled it off, and so that was kind of like the bug that bit me. I was like, but wait, this is what I want to do. So then I got to college at Penn State, and I went to the newspaper and I said, okay, so in high school I interviewed these bands and I think I could do it here for our school paper. And they go, no, like what does that have to do with our school? And I was like, and so I was managing a record store, and we had artists come in, and so I just started interviewing them, and we created an online music magazine. And it was kind of like the Wild West days of that kind of thing.
Right.
And so I just made these just wild requests, just everybody that I could think of. And in Philadelphia at the time, there was the weekly paper, which did all the cool, hit bands, and then the newspaper, which cared about kind of more the classic bands. And so everybody in between, they just kind of left alone. So I was the guy in Philadelphia that caught everything else.
Wow.
And so I got so lucky. All throughout college, I got to interview John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin.
Wow.
And Mick Taylor from the Stones. And I got lucky on some people that were just emerging, like Kid Rock that I befriended, and things like that. And it was just cool, And I just got to go on do a lot of things and hang out with a lot of people. I probably probably had no business talking to, but I don't know if they took pity on me or they just thought, oh, sure, I'm here, you're here.
Right.
And they gave me the time. And, just so many great memories of like, just traveling. It was kind of like Almost Famous, but I guess,
So in a lot of ways, those were like your formidable years as far as like
Yeah.
shaping you as a journalist. Was music just like the one thing that you wanted to cover, or was that just the thing that was there at the moment, and because of the experience you had in high school, you're like, I'm just going to cover music? Yeah. Was there ever a moment where you're like, I want to cover something else outside of music in the entertainment field?
Oh gosh, I've just always had just such a love for music, and I played in a band in high school and in college, and it was just a thrill to be able to sit down with just the people I grew up listening to,
yeah.
and discovering new artists and being able to hang out with them and see kind of how the real people do it,
Yeah.
And then when I moved here, my father's been doing film reviews for years since I was a kid. So he used to take me to screenings, and so he was taking me to screenings here, and I met a guy and he goes, yeah, you should write for us and do some interviews. You can interview some actors and directors. And I was like, no way, because I've always loved movies too. And he just gave me a chance, and I had to just right off the bat, like one of the first ones was Tom Cruise, and like I just kept going, Nicolas Cage, and just kept finding myself in front of all these big people. And then once you do that, people are like, well, I guess he's all right. Yeah, put him in. So, because a lot of times they just don't want their talent to be embarrassed, or in a bad situation. And so they would almost rather have you, if they know you'll do a good interview, even more so if you have a big publication, you're a jerk, because
right.
Then it just ruins the day. So.
Yeah. Would you remember like what that experience was like, getting to interview someone of like Tom Cruise's stature at such an early stage?
Yeah, it was just it's still a thrill. Every day just about every day I do several interviews, and now with Zoom, I just wake up in the morning and I've got 3 or 4 to look forward to, and it's pretty cool. So, and it's still a thrill.
Right.
I'm talking to people who are the best in the world at what they do. And now it's not just music, it's movies. Talk to astronauts, athletes, world leaders, politicians, it's all over the place. And authors, and just to get inside their brain and see what makes them work and see how they did what they did is pretty great. And you kind of realize that a lot of them have a similar story,
right,
where they just kind of went for it,
right,
even if it wasn't right, or even if it was, it wasn't the right way. You'd be surprised how many people have slept in their cars, or borrowed money from their parents, or pretended to be a catering person somewhere, to get in, and then you realize, okay, maybe I'm not such an alien.
Right. Well, when asking questions to like huge names in the entertainment world, I would see a lot of interviews, and the guests, when they're asked these questions, they're like, that's a really good question. I'm usually asked the same question all the time. When it comes to like your prep, like when you prep for someone, to interview someone, what's that process look like? And over the years, how much has that changed from when you started to like now? Like, what's that work look like beforehand?
I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't prep at all, really. I honestly just think about, like, okay, if I was sitting next to someone on a plane, what would I want to know about them? Like, oh, that's it. Well, I know enough about what they're doing, of course, if they have a new movie, a new album, or what they've done. But I don't sit there and take notes. I don't have notes with me. I think it's distracting, and they're always kind of trying to look and see, like, oh, what are we getting into next? I go in knowing the first question, and then the rest is just a conversation. And so, of course, you have to touch on whatever it is that they're promoting, whatever it is they have coming out that is the reason they're there. But, I always like to get into, like if it was, if they're an actor, what was that first movie that you saw that made you just go, oh, that's what I want to do? And how cool is it that you're here now, Right. And musicians, same thing. Like, what concert did they see that just kind of was like, oh, I can do this? Or authors, what book they read, and then I like to figure out like what they tell other people, what kind of advice they would give. And then I co-host with Drew Pearson from Dallas Cowboys, and he caught the Hail Mary. And so our signature question on the show is the Hail Mary moment, which is the moment in your life or career we just had to go for it, and it worked out for you. And then, I just like to get in there and just, see what makes them great. And I stay away from, bad topics, things that make people mad, things that make people uncomfortable, and, just really highlight them.
The good stuff.
Yeah.
How did you were working in journalism, like paper, print. When did the transition go into television?
That's a funny one. When I met Drew Pearson. So his producer, I met Drew at a party, and he goes, well, this is Drew Pearson from the Dallas Cowboys, and he's got a show coming out on Fox Sports next week. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Well, hey, if you ever need an ugly white guy to come on and do celebrity interviews, I'm your guy. And he goes, I'll see you on Thursday. And that's literally how it happened. There is no audition.
No way.
I kid you not. There's no audition. There's no tape. He hadn't seen anything. He just figured, well, just like a team, like, come on, run. And if it doesn't work, we cut you, and it's the same thing. So yeah.
How long ago was that?
This was 10 years ago, 2012.
Right place, right time.
Yeah, it really is. And that's so much of life, and I realized that in talking to all these people there is so much right place, right time. Of course, you have to have the talent, and you have to be ready to jump if someone goes, yeah, okay, go ahead. This weekend I was at Texas Frightmare Weekend, which is a big horror movie convention, and so I'm on stage doing interviews with all the people that played, like, Michael Myers and Freddy and, that kind of thing. And so the guy who played Michael Myers, in the first movie, there's like 4 people because they had no budget, and they're just like, hey, can you throw on the mask? And, they didn't know. They didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And the second one, the guy, he's just a stunt coordinator, and, somebody had to take a fall. And he's walking by the office, and he sees the mask laying, and he'd never even seen the first movie. It's funny because they didn't have, it's not like on demand. They could go watch it. He's like, I missed it. And so he sees the mask on the desk, and he picks it up, and he puts it on, and he goes to say hi to the director, and he's like, who the hell are you? And he goes, and he just stands there. He goes, no, who the hell are you? And he pulls up, and he goes, oh, I'm a stunt coordinator. And he's like, and then he goes, is there any reason I couldn't, put on the mask and play us? He goes, I don't know, ask Deborah, who's the producer. And then he goes and asks Deborah Hill, the producer.
Right.
Yeah, any reason I can't play this? She goes, no. And that's how he got to play Michael Myers.
Right place,
they didn't even
right
have
time.
like the person, and they're just like, yeah, okay. They're just going to have someone throw on the mask. And there's really so many of those stories. And, and what we call those Hail Mary moments. There's so many great ones, but the one that comes to mind that I always love is Josh Duhamel from Transformers. He was in, I think, North Carolina, borrowed a few $100 from his mom, took his Ford Taurus or whatever with 300,000 miles and just drove across the country. And his mom was crying and didn't want him to go, but he went, and I think he worked in the stockroom of the Gap, and then he became the face of the Gap or something like that. But it was just, just those taking those leaps of faith.
Moments, yeah.
And there's so many of those. I
mean, speaking of leaps, though, you're taking a leap on this photo.
I am.
What is the story behind this?
Well, if you notice the head wrap there, I'm in Dubai.
Okay.
So I do, in addition to movies and music, all that stuff, I do some travel features. And the tourism board for Dubai asked me to come over and do a travel feature. I'm like, oh yeah, twist my arm, go to Dubai and talk about how great it is. Yeah, sure. So I went, and it's my signature jump. I kind of do a running leap, and I've kind of done it all over the place. But this one it's kind of a cool shot. And then another thing, just by asking. So the contact for the tourism board took me and my friend out to dinner that night, and her husband was a cameraman for OSN in Dubai. And I go, oh, you guys ever do like celebrity interviews? He's like, no, we don't really get much in that way. I was like, I will totally do it. And he goes, oh, really? Oh, gosh, we'd love to have that. And so he hooked me up with a producer, and then I started doing segments for OSN in Dubai. So, you know, yeah, you just got to ask the question, really, you know?
Right place, right time.
I can always say no. I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty of times where people have said no, but I don't know. I try not to ask unless I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like what you were saying when you're talking about meeting all these artists. Like, it's like going back to like high school when you were like doing this stuff. It was like you just did it. Yeah,
I mean, and so that's why the book is called Going For It. And
which, by the way, yes, you are an author.
Yes,
coming out with your first book, correct? What and how did this all come about? Tell me.
I know, it doesn't even look like I can read, right? Much less write. But I do, right? So yeah, it's that all started because I was doing the segments for Drew Pearson for Fox Sports, and the segments on TV are brutally short. You know, it's like they play a little tiny clip of someone saying something, and they go, and this comes out on Friday. And all the great stuff that you had just falls on the floor, never to be seen again. And so I remember I interviewed Hugh Jackman about the Wolverine, and talked to him about his life, his career, his great moments and all that stuff. And the clip is him going, I wouldn't be in the shape if I wasn't playing Wolverine. They go, and the Wolverine opens on Friday. I was like, that's it. And I did stuff for ABC, and they really just wanted the promotional thing of whatever they were talking about. And I was like, there's so much more to these people, And so I go, I'm come from the magazine world, so I started thinking, well, I'll just start transcribing this stuff and see if anybody wants it. And so it was like a Thanksgiving break, and I just started going, and I was like, man, there's some good stuff. And I just, because like for an X-Men movie, right, you don't just interview Hugh Jackman, you interview Patrick Stewart, you interview, all the other people that are Michael Fassbender, all these great people, and then they use like this much of it. And so I just thought, let's roll with this and see how it works. And then all of a sudden I was like, man, it's like a chapter of a book. And around the time I got hit by a drunk driver, came out and got sideswiped by an 18-wheeler, and came out without a scratch. And I thought, okay, there's something left I'm supposed to do. And I just figured, maybe, if I died, those words died with me, So I think I need to really step this up and hurry up. And I just frantically, just as fast as I could, typed up everything I thought that had any kind of value to anybody. And all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, I have like a few hundred of these, And then I submitted it to my friend, and I was like, what do you think? Do you think there's value in this? Because there's some great insight and wisdom and all that. And he goes, yeah, it's great, but you got a lot more. I was like, well, sure. He goes, well, why stop at 300? You've got, what about that? You told me you talked to the guy from Led Zeppelin. You talked to a guy from the Rolling Stones. Why wouldn't that be in there? And so I started going back through the archives. And then I go, okay, this is it. And then the pandemic hit. And then I go, wow. Okay, people maybe they just don't want to hear from celebrities right now, And then the whole Zoom thing happened. And that kind of opened up a whole new world because, the thing is, it was, if somebody came around and they had time, we could do an interview with them. Or I could do it by phone. But Zoom allows us to be anywhere in the world with anybody. Yeah. And so I've been able to talk to so many people on movie sets, in the recording studios, and just at their homes. People showed me their Grammys, their Oscars, that kind of thing. And so I just started making these wild requests like I did in high school or in college. I'd just be like, I don't know. I've never talked to anybody from Creedence Clearwater Revival. So, drummer's like, yeah, sure, I got Parkinson's now, so I can't perform. So yeah, sure. And he just anything else you want to know? It just ended up being this super long conversation. And just so much knowledge and wisdom from all these people. So as it turns out, I ended up doing 350 interviews during the pandemic. So
wow.
Yeah. So,
and how much of that is added onto the book?
Well, yeah. So I was just like, okay, well, here we go. And we got like, I don't know, like around 800 or so celebrities. And my friend Hayden goes, go to 1,000. And I was like, yeah, 1,000, let's do it. And I just, went crazy. And so now the book is called Going For It. And it was Advice, Wisdom, and Hail Mary Moments from the Stars. Well, now it's Advice, Wisdom, and Hail Mary Moments from 1,000 stars. And I thought, all right, this is great. This is going to be like and then we printed it out. And you should have heard the thunk when it hit the table. It was like a textbook. I was like, okay, this is too much. This is like, I'm not even going to read this, And I go, and it's not fair, too, to put so much stuff in one place and just... there's so many people that just kind of gloss over it. Like, I want this to be like a cool read, something, it's quick and easy and fun and informative. And so we've now, I think, broken it up into a few different books. So first one should be coming out in a few months. It just takes a little while.
So now it's like a series. Is it going to be named after like the first one, or is there going to be different titles and whatnot?
The problem is when you get a bunch of people involved, everyone's got ideas. They're like, oh, well, now they're saying, oh, you should change the name of it. Oh, you should do, books that are like this size, kind of like you'd see in Urban Outfitters or something. And then other people are like, no, you got to do one big book. Like one guy goes, who says anyone's going to want another book? I was like, yeah, okay, you're right. Maybe I'll do one book. And so you're just going through all these kind of things where you're just thinking, shoot, I don't know what the right thing is, but I'm just going to put it out there in the world. And I'm the worst too, because they'll be like, okay, they talk about selling it or packages. I was like, I'm happy to give it away. Yeah. Like, this is like my gift to the world. And they're like, no, you're a terrible business person. Don't do that.
I would love to get an exclusive.
Yeah.
And basically ask you just for one of the quotes as far as of advice from one of the celebrities from the book that you found profound.
Oh gosh, there's so many good ones, and I could read off a
just
bunch.
One of the 100.
Probably my favorite quote in there is from Sir Ben Kingsley, who played Gandhi, won the Oscar. He says, "If your motives are pure, the angels will come." And,
wow,
just such a beautiful thing to say.
What was it about that like hit you?
I don't know. It just I think it's because in relation to what I do, like I'm trying to put this book out there in the world to make people not feel like such an alien, and not think, because it's so hard when you like, I want to be a actor, I want to be a musician, I want to be an author, but how do you do it? Like, I was a kid from Hartsville, Pennsylvania, where no one famous came from, and probably no one will, but what's the path to get there? You write a great song, okay. Well, how do you get that out there in the world? Now it's a little bit easier with YouTube and things like that, but there's still no clear path. Someone may be a great writer, but it's hard to make it as a book or a screenplay or whatever. And I think the people who do really well are the people that would do it anyway. And just like this, I love talking to people, and even if it was, I've had it not be my job before. I've taken corporate gigs to just be like, you know what, it's too much, but I still did it on the side, and I still did it on nights and weekends because I loved it. Right. And I think wanting to put out the book to make people feel like, look, here's 1,000 shining examples of people who they didn't have anything else that anyone else doesn't have, I mean, sure, you can be guaranteed to be rich by, I don't know, good fortune or, parents or something like that, inheritance maybe, but fame, nah, people decide that, that's all talent. And so I think if one person reads this book and doesn't give up and, later on can say, man, I read this book, and I was going to quit, but I didn't, then it's worth it. It's worth doing. And so, and that is my motive, and I feel like it is pure. Like, I do want people I want them to win. I don't care if people take these quotes and, you know, make them as part of the memes or those little quote things or put the footage out there. I really don't care. I hope they do, you know? And, you know, maybe again, that makes me a bad business person, but I like, this is right from, you know, their brain, their mouth to mine, you know, and like you know, I feel like I just have some sort of cosmic duty to put all this out there in the world so that people, you know, people can find that hope and that inspiration, because we sure need it right now.
Well, I mean, you know, you're talking about the book and everything coming out, and like how you had like 1,000+ pages, and then it gets broken up, and now you got people like coming at you like this title and that. How do you navigate when you've got all those things coming at you at one time, to make the right decision and to understand who to listen to and how to move forward with it?
It's hard because, you know, it's, I mean, you may tell me something and be like, you know what you need to do? And you might be totally right. And I didn't think about that, you know, because like I said, everyone's got an opinion. Oh, just put out the ebook. You could have it out next week, you know? And some people are like, oh, don't put it out as a book, you know, take all these clips that you have, because you have most of them on video, and make like a inspirational Instagram account, and you can make so much more money doing that. I was like, I don't know. I just want to put this book out there in the world, and I guess now maybe it'll be a series of books. So we'll see.
That's so cool, man. Well, I just wanted to thank you again for your time, and it was so great seeing you, catching up, and hearing about this book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Continued success in everything that you do. Is there any advice that you could give our listeners and viewers, anyone who's kind of like in that place where you were as a kid in high school, trying to figure out what you want to do, or maybe in college, you know, what advice would you give someone that's trying to pursue?
That's a good question. I would say ask the question. You know, you can see from my example that most of the stuff came from me just asking. You know, hey, can I interview you? Hey, can I be on the show? Can I do this? Can I do that? You know, and if you don't ask, it won't happen, and it might eat you up. You might never know. You know, you'd be like, man, maybe I could have been on Paul's show. You know, I've had several people that have ended up working with me just because they asked. You know, wow. And so I feel like just like I was given a chance, and yeah, sure, come on, you know. But a lot of people, you'd be surprised how many people will ask and then never follow up or never show up, you know. And so that's part of it too, is, you know, ask the question, but also be prepared to show up and do it, because there's so many people in this book and just beyond that's how they did it. They just asked. Like, hey, can I put me in, coach? You know, and that's really how I found the best things in my life, is just by asking the question.
Well, how can our listeners who have learned something, I'm for sure, I have, but if they're watching, listening, how can they follow you on social media? Oh yeah, I'm just at Paul Salfen, which is Salfen. And it's every account is under my name, and I hope they do follow along, because I think it's about to get even more exciting. You know, and if this book, you know, does what I hope it does, then, you know, there will be more. And you know, I think the next book I'd like to do is a book of CEOs, kind of telling their stories. You know, and then a book of regular people, you know, who've overcome and done great things. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But the name again of the book, and when does the first release happen? It's called Going For It, and it should be out in the next, I think, 4 months. So we'll just say the fall to be safe. Might make a good Christmas present. I don't know. Might not be. It might just make a good doorstop. You know, but we'll find out. Thanks so much for your time. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching and listening, and we'll see you soon.
Stay tuned and explore the next Artist Uprising. Use #ArtistUprising to join the movement.